Understanding how angles work and how to use them is really important to your tennis success. That's why I'm creating this video today, to help you win more points, have more fun, win more matches on the court. And first, we're going to talk about when not to try angles. This is critical because most tennis points across all levels of play end with somebody making a mistake. So if you're attempting an angle in a situation where it's really not warranted, or you bring extra risk on top of yourself, then your chances for winning the match go way down if you try that shot again and again. So that's why I drew these lines here, just to quickly show a visual representation of how angles work. And you'll notice that when you start from a deep position close to the middle and you hit this spot right here close to the side tee, then the furthest your opponent is going to have to run is just outside the singles court on the other side. If you're a little bit further away from the center on this blue line, hit the same target, now your opponent is going to have to run significantly further. But most of all, if you're short in the court and further wide, now your opponent really gets hurt dramatically by hitting that same spot. So choosing when to use an angle is a risk and reward balance. This is what's most important for you to be aware of. If you're towards the center of the court and you take on the extra risk of trying to hit that side tee, you're not gaining very much and you're risking dramatically more by hitting over a higher part of the net and closer to the line. When you're in the middle of the court, you're risking a lot without really gaining very much. By going a little further out wide to this blue mark, now maybe it's a little bit more attractive because we have the potential to hurt our opponent more. And when we get a short and wide ball, now the opportunity to really inflict some damage and force our opponent off the court becomes dramatically higher. So the first point here is when not to go for an angle, and that's when you're anywhere close to the center of the court. If you're in the middle of the court, your mentality should be to drive the ball deep, heavy, as much topspin as you can put on the ball, as deep as you can place the ball consistently, but no need to aim for the sidelines. Instead, just try to elicit a shot that's easier for you to attack on the next ball. Have a patient mindset, a patient attitude, and wait for a better opportunity where angles present themselves that hurt your opponent more. Another time that you don't want to use angles, or you don't want to force it, is when you're approaching the net and you haven't really done much to hurt your opponent. Let me diagram that really quickly. When you get a short ball and you're coming forwards and you know that the next ball you're going to continue forwards towards the net after you've hit that shot, you want to be careful about hitting an angle, because if you just kind of hit an okay shot, then what you're doing is hitting the ball away from your position. And when your opponent runs down that shot, you're leaving yourself really, really exposed for a passing shot. Anytime you come to the net, you want to position yourself on the same side of the court that the ball is on. So if you hit your approach shot from this side of the court and you hit the next ball all the way across on the other side of the court, then by the time your opponent hits their first passing shot, your job is to get all the way over to the other side of the court before that passing shot attempt gets hit. So you have to weigh, again, the risk reward here. If you're going to approach cross court, you'd better either hit it significantly harder than what your opponent can handle, or with significant amount of angle so it really draws them way off the court and puts them in a really dramatically difficult position. Or maybe that's their weakness and they just are terrible at hitting passing shots off that wing. Or maybe a combination of those three. But if at least one of them isn't present and you go for an angle off an approach shot, then you're leaving yourself really exposed on the next ball. So just keep that in mind. Another alternative way of looking at this is simply that you can go for that angle on the approach if you keep in mind that you need to be very quick and immediately cut over to the other side as soon as you're done with that approach shot. If you're lackadaisical at all and you haven't really hurt your opponent, then hitting that angle actually ends up hurting you more than it hurts your opponent. If hearing the common pitfalls and mistakes that players make with angles has already been helpful, do me a favor and click that like button. It helps support the channel, it helps more players see these videos. Thank you so much for that. Now let's talk about when to look for angles. When should you be trying to pull your opponent off the court more frequently? And the first situation here is when you get pulled out wide first. So when you're in a situation that you get pulled well away from the center, that opens up this type of angle much more readily. It also means that the ball is going to travel more over the center of the net, and it just becomes more available to you than when you're in the center. Plus, it hurts your opponent more when you attempt an angle from farther off the court. The wider you are, hitting that same target spreads further and further and further. So when you're closer to the middle, your mentality should be to target somewhere cross court and deep and strong. The further you get pulled wide, while still in a comfortable and confident position, the more you can start to think about this type of shot. Now, I want to really stress the fact that you should still be in control, still be confident, still be balanced. If those things aren't present and you're like falling over and reaching for the ball, then it's probably not the right time to take on the extra risk of trying that sharp angle. The second scenario you want to look for is when you're to one side of the court or the other, and when the ball is a little bit short. When you're taking a few steps inside the court, a lot of players get uncomfortable in this scenario where they're having to kind of cut inside the baseline. Maybe it's a lower ball, shorter ball, and you're having to kind of reach over, bend over a little bit. A lot of players find that uncomfortable, having to lift the ball over the top of the net. But it's actually a prime opportunity for you to target the opposite tee over on the side, or anything close to the sideline, because the closer you get to the net, especially when you're pulled wide, the more of an opportunity you have to access that type of sharp angle. The closer you get to the net, the easier it is to hit over the top of the net and dip the ball and hit that sharp angle. Think about it in terms of like coming up to the net. If you're all the way up close to the net, then you have the ability to hit really, fancy extreme angles that really pull your opponent off the court. And that's because the net isn't nearly as much in the way the closer you get, assuming that you're able to hit the ball in a comfortable position. It's a different story if the ball is down at your shoelaces, so definitely keep that in mind. But if you're way back behind the baseline, that same distance from the sideline, hitting that same target, you can see that the angle isn't nearly as advantageous. So the shorter you get in the court, hitting the same target becomes a more aggressive angle. So if the next time you find yourself getting pulled forwards and to the side, keep in mind that's a really good opportunity to potentially pull your opponent off the court with a sharp angle. If you're struggling to get to the ball, you're reaching, you're bending, then probably just go back to that safe, cross-court target. But if you're in control, it's a really good opportunity to pull your opponent off the court with a nice sharp angle. If you'd like more tactics and strategies to help you be more successful on the court, make sure to go to essentialtennisacademy.com, where you can get free access to all these different coaching modules and many more, including these two called Singles Strategy Playbook and Singles Strategy Fundamentals. They'll give you a framework to follow so you can win many more matches and be more successful on the court. For free access, just go to essentialtennisacademy.com. The final time that you want to look for sharp angles is when you're close to the net, you've already hit an approach shot. Keep in mind, using a sharp angle as an approach can be dicey. You've got a lot of running to do to get to the other side. But sometimes it can be effective, and once you're up there and you're close to the net, especially on a higher ball, it's much, much easier to access sharp angles that are really extreme and pull your opponent off the court. Now, you need to have some feel and some touch. The closer you get and the sharper of an angle you aim for, the less court you have to work with. It actually becomes a shorter and shorter distance between you and your target the closer you get to the net. So it's risk and reward. The reward is that it's a sharper angle, but you have to have the control and the feel in order to land it inside the lines. If you'd like some more coaching on how to be softer and have better feel and touch so you can hit those sharp, soft angle volleys, check the first comment down below and I'll link to a lesson. But this is another prime time to look to use an angle and really pull your opponent off the court. Just keep in mind, after you've hit this volley, if it's not a winner, you have to get all the way over to the other side of the court to be positioned correctly for the next shot. So keep that in mind. When you attempt a sharp angle and you're at the net, you've got to get all the way over to the other side of the court in a hurry. So there's risk and reward to angles, but when you know when to use them and how to use them in a smart way, it can really open up the court and give you a tremendous benefit. So hopefully this lesson gave you some ideas and some tactics that you can use in your own game. If you've appreciated that, do me a favor and click the like button. And let me know in the comments down below, what are other times that you use angles that work well for you? Thanks for watching, and I'll catch you in the next video.